Good morning. The January 2026 meeting of the Planning, Zoning, and Variance Board is called to order. Initially, let me wish everybody a Happy New Year, and please turn off any phones or electric items that you may have. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liz, you're going to take a roll?
Sir, Jim Carbon.
Present.
Terry Bowman.
Present.
Matt Hutmaker. Here.
We have a quorum. Again, good morning, everyone. We have two items on the agenda today. Both are applications from Johns Island Golf Club with respect to the construction of a new 3-story parking lot. The process for today will be to consider both applications. We will hear from the applicant. We will then hear from any interested parties, although I don't see any present. There will be questions from the board with respect to each application. And then following this, the board will make a ruling, a vote, and based upon that vote, we will make a recommendation to the town council, and you should know that the town council has the final authority as to whether to grant or deny any application for variance. For the record, we'll note that we received the application, two applications, one with respect to a setback variance, the other with respect to a height variance, as well as a memorandum from staff about the applications. Mr. Hompering, I think you had a comment to make with respect to the staff memo.
Yes, just for clarification, and historically and here, and of course moving forward, staff itself does not make a recommendation as to PZV as to their recommendation relative to approval or disapproval, nor do we do so to the town council. The indications in the staff memo relative to satisfactory compliance have to do with the procedural requirements. What staff does in the evaluation of PZV applications is to ensure that the application itself has addressed all of the criteria prior to it being placed on the agenda. In other words, and not to minimize it, has the applicant procedurally checked all the boxes for the application? Because we wouldn't want to just simply provide it to PZV and then have the procedural issues come up and then have that delay the actual addressing of the substantive issues. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board, that whatever the criteria happen to be, those boxes have been checked. The weight or the substance that you give to those responses is up to the board and to the town council, not to the staff. We just indicate that if there are 6 things that they have to address, they didn't leave a line blank or a box unchecked, so to speak.
Thank you. And to be certain, the determination of whether the criteria for a variance has been met is within the province of this board, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just follow up, this is very similar, and I couldn't share it with the rest of the board, but Member Bowman had a question, Terry had a question, and I would analogize it to a court case being filed. When you give it to the clerk checks to see is it signed, the fee is paid, it's the procedure checklist. Ultimately, the judge or the jury makes the determination on whether the case is won or lost. So hopefully that helps give clarification on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to give a little more background on our procedure, but you tell me when's appropriate.
The one other thing I wanted to note that we received for the record is an email dated January 12 with some additional information and plans of the structure that is proposed, and we'll be talking about those. But Council, now would be a good time for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. A couple things. So again, we're going to be having 2 different hearings, so we will treat them separately. We'll keep that in mind. That's the first thing. The second thing is this is quasi-judicial, so we're going to have our clerk, Liz, swear in anybody very quickly that could potentially provide testimony, including staff. We'll do that in a minute. The third thing is, and Mr. Chair, you just mentioned about receiving things. If there's any ex parte communication, I would just recommend that we go through each of you and you indicate whether you've had any or not. It just makes the record clear. If you have, you simply need to disclose generally what it was, who it was with, and when it was, okay? The last is the procedure. Mr. Chair has it exactly right. We'll have those presentations. And at the end, when you get into your deliberations, I do want to mention one other thing as far as findings. But at this point in time, it's probably appropriate to have our clerk swear in and also do a quick poll of any ex parte communication.
Well, before we do that, I'll mention the ex partes right now. I did have a meeting with Mr. Wilson at the site, and we had a discussion about the application briefly.
Yes, well, it would be any member of this board, if you had any ex parte communication with any member of the citizenry, residents, applicants, anybody that's come up to you and said, I heard about this, you're going to have it in front of you as PZV members, I think you should do X, Y, or Z. So that's the type of ex parte communication.
Okay.
And you just disclosed it, Mr. Chair. So that's-
Well, while we're at it then, did any other board member take up the opportunity to visit the site or speak with the applicant?
And go ahead and explain it, just very briefly.
Yes, I had an invitation to go to the site visit, and I met with Mr. Wilson as well.
Thank you. Matt?
No, I haven't had any discussions with anybody.
Thank you. So that takes care of ex parte, and then ready to swear in anybody that could provide testimony, including staff. So,
Would you like to please stand?
no, they can. Yeah, that's probably better for the record. Habit, yes. Yeah, just in case, Fred. No, now you're
Swear to
listening.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right. So, Mr. Chair, we have everybody sworn in. If anybody should come in late, of course, we would swear them in. But other than that, Mr. Chair, the floor is yours, and I'm happy to answer any questions during this procedure.
Well, I think we'll hear from the applicant. Who's here to speak on behalf of John's Island?
Good morning. My name is Blaine Bergstresser with KMA Engineering and Surveying. I'm the engineer of record for the project. And just a quick question. You said we're going to do them separately. Which one are we starting with?
Good question. Let's start with the setback application.
The set.
I'd like to, just because the agenda is set this way, we should just follow the agenda. The first one listed on the agenda is the 3-story and 40 height request.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect. We'll start with the height. So as we stated in our application, over the years as we submitted different site plans for John's Island, our goal has always been to increase the parking that is on the property. One reason being for the employees, but also being for the residents. So with the parking garage that we've submitted, our goal is to utilize the existing parking lot that is closest to the clubhouse, but also is closest to the facilities where a lot of the employees will be working, and supplement it with a parking garage. So the goal of the parking garage in an existing footprint is that we'll gain an additional 160 parking spaces that can be utilized for employees as well as for the residents. The first variance that we're asking in order to accomplish this is for the building height. So based off the current zoning, so it's an OS C1A zoning, you are allowed 2 stories that are 20 feet. Typically, this zoning is more for a residential component, even though in this exact parcel, we do not have any residential. We have the commercial clubhouse as well as the facilities, which are considered more a commercial or recreation application. With the parking garage, we are asking for 3 stories. And when we do that and say the height of being 40 feet, that is the tallest portion of the parking garage. So with it being 3 stories, and you see a parking garage, you park on the very top floor and you'll have like a parapet wall for shielding of the cars. That actual height will be at around 30 feet from the existing ground. The 40 feet is actually for, if you look on the drawings we submitted, there's some, call it like a roof gable. It's an architectural feature, and that's utilized because there will be an elevator, 2 elevators on this parking garage, and whenever you have an elevator, there's an elevator room that's on the very top. So this is an architectural feature that is utilized to shield and give a better aesthetics of what would be typically a mechanical room. So the variance we are asking for is from the 20 feet for I'll say an average of 30 feet for the parking garage, but a little less than 44 where those elevator rooms will be.
Did you say 44?
No, it's a little less than 40 from existing ground.
Could I ask a question? So the drawings that we received has a height measurement of 47.83 at the roof.
Correct, yes. So if you look down at the very bottom where it says level 1,
And to be certain, we're looking at the drawings with the elevation?
that's the correct drawing, yes. So that's actually above sea level. So if you look down at the bottom, it says level 1, it says 8.33. That's existing.
I can't make it out on the copy we have.
I had to blow it up on my computer, so
I apologize. I can share this with you guys. It's much easier to read.
And Mr. Chair, members of the board, I think a clarification is very important right now on what the height is in this. And perhaps Mr. Held can correct me, but I believe in the C1A commercial, the maximum height and the maximum stories is 2 stories and 30 feet. So I just don't want there to be any confusion about what exactly the ask is. So that's what's allowed by right, but I would ask Mr. Held to confirm that.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification as I misspoke. So yeah, we are 3 stories, but if you think about it, the 3rd story is technically a roof because they're technically parking on the roof of the structure. So as I was stating, if you look on that drawing I just shared, 8.33 is the existing ground elevation, and then the very top of the roof over the elevator equipment room is at, I apologize, 44, I think on that. Yeah, so you have to subtract the 8.3 from that to get the actual height of the parking garage.
Okay, and that's the height of not the roof on top of.
Are you referring to the roof of the parking lot itself, not the gable?
Of the actual parking garage, it should be as stated in there. Oh, I brought one copy.
You're talking about the flood elevation.
The flat elevation
Okay.
is, and I apologize if I could look at it wrong, but what's up? The flat elevation is the 39.8.
All right, and what is the height of the gable?
That gable's on that first sheet, and I believe that's the 40.
The drawing shows basically the top of the parapet at 47.83,
then
not
a
the
truss
top of the
on top of
gable.
that.
Correct. And there's a truss on top of that, so that's. Yes.
So what I highlighted on the top, there's that 38.3, that's the top of the parapet wall. And then on the other one is how I highlighted is the top of the architectural feature. So when you actually look at heights on pitched roofs, you don't go to the very top. You go to, there's a mean level that we actually measure from. So that's what we have highlighted there.
And there would be an additional elevation represented by the truss, correct?
On the gable, correct, yes.
And what is that? What is the top of that elevation?
It's probably another 3 or 4 feet, but like I stated, usually when you measure roof height, you come across a mean level. You don't do it at the very top of the peak.
Okay, but let's start with the actual height of the building, just so that I understand that in building department code, there may be different ways to measure the height for code purposes, but we are now asking for, you're asking for a variance, and what we're trying to understand is, let's go with actual height of the building from, I guess, current ground level, which you're saying, because this drawing right here shows 47.83 feet to basically the top of the elevator shaft, not counting the roof gable. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So is it about 10 feet to the top of the roof gable?
Like I was saying, the roof gable would probably be another 4 feet.
Mr. Chair and Board, I think it's really important because we're talking about 5 or 6 or 7 different measurements here. And the reason, and I think
I
Mr.
understand.
Held needs to give us, because the reason why is the applicant's asking for a variance from the technical allowance.
Understood. But one of the things I'm concerned about, which may not be limited by the technical allowance, is the observability of this, particularly from A1A. And I
That's
think
right.
what we're learning is that the top of the truss from, is going to be in excess of 50 feet. When you add that additional 4 feet on top of the 47 feet for the parapet.
It would be less than that because of the existing ground level.
Okay. How much less?
It would probably be right around, like I said, I apologize, I don't have the very tippy top, I don't have that exact measurement, what it is, but it'd be around 43, 44 feet.
Well, it can't be if the parapet is 47 feet.
Right, but what I'm saying is you gotta subtract the 8.33 is what the existing ground elevation is.
I understand. What is the pitch of the roof? Because then you can tell from that, is it a 10, 12.2? You would know, you have to know the height of the roof from the top of.
I apologize, I don't have the exact height of the very top, because like I said, we don't typically measure from the very top of the pitch. So I apologize for that.
Okay.
Has there been any determination made or any study made of the visibility of the top of this parking lot from A1A?
Not from A1A, no.
Just looking at the trees there, they don't come anywhere near 40 or even 30 feet. So you're going to have a view from A1A at the top of this parking lot, correct?
Well, I would say this, they're not going to be as obviously 40 feet tall, but as you're sitting in a car and your angle that way you're looking from sitting in a car and how close you are to the trees, I don't think it would be very difficult to see the very top of.
You haven't looked into that, have you?
We haven't done the visibility study from A1A now.
Has the club considered any alternatives to this structure?
As opposed to a parking garage in general? So what we've been, like I stated, we were here probably last year for remote parking lots that they have developed for the staff. There's one on Clarkson Lane, and there's one more on Chapin that we have turned into parking for employees within the last year.
What about alternatives to this structure?
We have looked at solely a parking garage in this exact location. We've done different iterations when it's come to like architectural styles. So for instance, we're talking about the pitched roof. That was something that was added on for aesthetics, as opposed to just having a flat stucco band roof everywhere. This was kind of added on for an aesthetically appealing kind of view.
What has changed that requires this parking garage now?
Well, I think there's always been an issue, and Rex might be able to weigh in more than I am. There's always been an issue with parking at the club, whether it's in finding spots for employees or residents. Since the club has probably been, established and this parking lot was built, the number of employees has grown quite a bit. As you can imagine, there's just more services offered at the club. but also you're probably seeing more residents that might have multi-cars in their driveways, as well as visitors when it comes to, I think you're seeing a younger generation of kids and grandkids that are coming to utilize the club. So this is trying to fix an existing issue, but also we think that there's going to be more of a parking demand in the club as
You
it comes in.
mentioned that this garage would have 160 parking spots. How is that number determined? That is to say, how is it determined to seek an additional 160 spots?
So actually, we're going to have, in that parking garage, we're going to have 218, but we're losing existing parking, so it's a net gain of 160.
Okay, and why 218? Why an additional 160?
You also have to realize we have another project that we're working on right now, which is the expansion of our tennis facilities. So there's 74 temporary parking spots on the north end of our tennis facility that are for employees that are going to be lost. So that's 74 spaces also we are going to lose for the staff. Our staff, when I came there in 1993, was 250 employees. We now have over 650 employees at the club.
Right, I appreciate that, and that, you know, that these are changes that the club would like to make to improve the club for the members, but what I'm struggling with is the criteria for a variance includes that the request or the basis for the request cannot be self-created, and that, Mr. Wilson, what you just described is directly a self-created issue. And also the criteria, something, just because there's a need doesn't, you know, mean it's not self-created. This is squarely within the definition of self-created. So I particularly with the height requirement variance, I'm struggling with whether the request meets the criteria, because there are other criteria I could go through as well. But the need for parking is not a hardship that, in my view, satisfies the criteria. You know, if anyone could come in and say, I just had triplets, I need 4 extra bedrooms in my house, that's not, you know, a basis for a variance of the ordinances. So that's what I'm struggling with a little bit. And so I had, if we can go back to the questions on this, on this drawing, could you just mark on here where the elevator shafts are going to be?
Can I jump in real quick regarding the height requirement on the building here?
Sure.
Maybe I can help clear up some issues here.
Is that the only one?
And Blaine, if you could, can you step up to the up here real quick and help us out? I just need you to point out some stuff for us here. Let's clear this up real quick for everyone. The first thing we need to do is we need to establish, obviously, the average natural grade of the site here. So let's establish that first here. What is the average natural grade? 8.3. Okay, so let's establish 8.3 on the drawing there.
And Mr. Held, just for the purpose of this record, this would universally apply to any application for a building permit to your office?
That's correct. I'm following section 164 of the Town of Indian River Shores Land Development Code, and this is how I come up with measuring building height.
Thank you.
So the first thing we need to do is we need to establish the average natural grade of the site, okay? So once we establish the average natural grade, then what we want to do is measure vertically up to the inside finish face, okay, of the highest interior ceiling to the exterior wall. So that's going to be a point where they meet. So you're going to have the interior ceiling, the highest interior ceiling, to where it meets up with the exterior wall face. Okay? So you'll take that measurement.
Well, what is that measurement?
That's going to be the height.
No, what?
Yeah, so
what is the
let's
actual
find
measurement?
that. So look for the underside of the third floor ceiling. The underside of the
It's the
third.
4783 that we've been speaking about.
Okay, so the underside of the third floor ceiling, that's going to be your measurement is, so what's that measurement from the the average natural grade up to the underside of the third floor ceiling?
47.83.
So when you take into account the existing grade, you get 39.5.
39.5, okay? So that is the height of the building. Everything above that, in this instance, does not count because it's a parking garage, okay? We have above that, what do we have on there? Let's look at the,
The drawing doesn't say, but it's at least 10 feet to the peak.
we
It
do
has to
not,
be.
we do not look at the other, let's look at it together. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. So everything else above there, we have the stairs, correct? And we have the peaked roof over the stairs. What are the stairs used for? That's egress. That's not considered part of the building envelope, correct? That's egress. Everything else is considered egress. So it would not fall under that building envelope. So it would not be counted as the height of the building. All right?
So are you saying that would only count the parapet wall?
The parapet wall above the third story ceiling would not count either. Okay, it's only everything that's inside the building envelope that would count for the building height itself. Everything else above that does not count for the building height in a parking garage. Okay? The parapet wall would not count above that. The roof, the pitch roof would not count. That's an egress point. If that was an elevator in there, it would not count. Now, if it was a little office above there, let's say it was an occupied space, something of that nature, then it would count. Then we would have to use that as a height requirement. But it doesn't. It's not part of the whole building envelope that's included. So that would not count as part of the height requirement. Okay? So that figure you gave us for the height from the average natural grade up to the bottom of the ceiling of the third floor is your building height. So you would need a variance that would cover you for anything above that 30 foot up to the figure that you gave us.
Well, Mr. Hill, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Is there any limitation on the height of the access ways? That can go as high as space?
It would be in a residential situation for a house, it would be 10 feet.
10
So
feet
anything above that ceiling,
Right.
anything that would be above that ceiling, you would have a limitation of 10 feet.
And what about with respect to a structure of this type?
If you have any type of egress point, there would not be any type of restriction on an egress point.
No
to where you-
restriction at all?
No, not for a parking garage egress
I
point.
could go to Mars.
Well, it's considered part of the architectural design
All right.
in that case. So, but you're not going, in other words, if you went another 50 feet high, obviously that's not part of an architectural design. It would have to meet wind load requirements as well. So it would all have to be part of the structural and architectural design. It would have to meet certain wind load requirements that would have to fall within the Florida Building Code.
I mean, I understand, that's very helpful, thank you for that.
Again, this is my technical, I'm
Right.
just giving you my technical opinion. I'm giving you what's based on our ordinance as well as what's based on the Florida building codes when it comes to egress and when it comes to parking garages. Again, I'm not casting a vote or anything like that. I'm just giving you my technical expertise on the subject.
So I understand. So in the event that the parking structure that they proposed was 30 feet above the average natural grade, we wouldn't be here today.
Correct.
Because you could approve it regardless of the, of how high the egress point goes.
Correct.
Right, but we are here today because they're seeking a variance above the 30-foot height requirement. And because of that, in my view, it is a reasonable inquiry as to how high the actual entire building is going to be, because one of our factors is impact to the community. So I understand there's a difference between the technical definition of the height of the building. I had asked earlier what the actual height of the building at that point was going to be. It seems to me it's roughly, assuming the peak is 10 feet, it's above the grade is 39.5 plus 10 feet, which, so the top of that, assuming that the peak is 10 feet, I'm just assuming, could be 12, but it's 49.5 to the top of the roof of the elevator shaft.
That's a fair estimate.
Okay. So that's, we understand the various differences. So it sounds like from the technical perspective, the variance request is a 10-foot difference between what's allowed, roughly 9.5-foot difference between what's allowed and what you're requesting.
Madam,
Is
yes, I
that-
think that's
is that
accurate.
correct?
The
Okay.
technical request for the variance is whatever's above 30 feet, and the math that Mr. Held and Mr. Bergstresser just did indicates it's approximately 9.5?
Correct.
And
That's
so-
correct.
Okay, thank you. And that's excellent to establish what you're evaluating.
that's-
That is exactly right. Thank you.
And I believe your next question is
Yep.
where this was occurring.
Yes, right, exactly, because it,
So this right here where I boxed out, and I'll highlight this, it makes it easier. This is where the elevator shaft is. So this,
and there's only one elevator
there's
shaft?
only one
Okay.
elevator shaft. So as you can see, it's furthest away from A1A. So this right here,
And if I may, A1A would be at the bottom of the shot?
yeah, so this is
Thank you.
Silver Moss coming in.
Right.
So the bushes are right here, A1A is right where my hand is. So this is where it's located. It's when I was saying, we haven't done a site study, but if you're sitting in a car, your horizontal distance from this peak is a good amount of feet. I mean, it's, like I said, it's as far back as it can be.
Okay, so just for the record, I guess what you're pointing to, the elevator shaft is on the northwesterly portion of the building and is, I don't know, what is the approximate like, square feet of, or the dimensions of the shaft?
It is probably the shaft I would say a good estimate would be a 25 by 25 area.
Okay,
25 feet by 25 feet.
and that's the only area where the peak roof is going to be over?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and on this drawing that you provided, there's dotted lines at the bottom. I was wondering, what is the dotted line at the very bottom? Is this the
That's
A1A?
John's Island property line, which would also be the right-of-way line of
Is that vertical?
Right, okay. So from, do you know the distance from the right-of-way line of A1A to the corner of the closest corner of the parking structure?
Not off the top of my head, but by scaling it, because this is, I believe Silver Moss is a 80-foot right-of-way.
It says 60.
Oh, good catch, 60-foot right-of-way. Then your closest point, probably 75 feet.
And
And that would be from this corner.
From the
right here.
closest corner?
And then to go to that line right there.
And Mr. Bergstresser, the structure itself, it's tiny, but it appears to be 128 and a half feet. I see it listed on that south.
It's 126.5 feet.
Sorry, thank you.
Deep.
Thank you.
So as you just stated, so that, let's say that where that roof would be for the elevator shaft, you'd be from the right-of-way line, you'd be 175 feet, give or take, from where the bushes are on A1A.
What bushes?
The bushes in the right-of-way.
Okay,
that
thank you.
for A1A.
I'm looking at the elevation diagram. You've got two parapets.
That was my confusion as well. It certainly looks like there's two.
Is there a second pitch roof on the stairwell?
I thought I covered the elevator shaft and the stairwell.
Is it possible for me to pull anything up on the TV with a flash drive? The reason I'm saying is I have architectural elevations that should clear up what it would look like.
Well, are there one or two parapets?
I'm sorry?
Are there one or two parapets?
I'm going to verify on that. I did not believe there was one over the stairwell on the other, on the north, excuse me, the southwest side.
I believe there's two.
Yeah. Just pull up the north view, that picture, all the way there.
Northeast or northwest?
You can pull up northeast first.
And just for the record, Mr. Bergstresser, will you supply that so we can have that?
Of course, I'll submit as public record.
Thank you.
So this is looking at from the northeast. So as you can see, the pitched roof is on the elevator shaft on the northwest, and then there's the entrance that's occurring right there on the northeast. And then can you go to the next one?
So just for clarification for everybody, Mr. Bergstresser, Heather, if you would move to what would be the long face of that building there, just the cursor. Okay, yeah, right there. So that is the west facing front. That's what we're looking at right here is the west facing front. Is that accurate?
That is correct. That's you looking from the golf course to the west.
Okay.
From the west.
And if I see this correctly, there are two parapets.
There are two. I apologize. There's one that the architect put on the stairwell. So this would be on
the
the
one on the south.
This would be on the southwest portion. All right, no worries.
And Mr. Held, if I may, board. Mr. Held, based on your prior testimony, where we see the first level of openings of faux windows, do you see that? Based on your testimony, if you were standing on that level inside that structure and you looked up, the ceiling that you would see would be your building height based on what you said earlier. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But there are,
I don't disagree. I just want to be clear for the record.
right, but there's also a limit of 2 stories in this, so it's not just the height.
Correct.
And,
Yes,
and
you're
the
correct.
code ordinances with respect to height calculations have to be assessed in the context of also being 2 stories. So the 2 have to be read together, not just, you know, sort of separated out. So when we're, you know, I understand the technical aspects of the height calculations, but typically we'd be talking about a 2-story building, not a 3-story building. So the egress height would be limited, and because it starts with a 2-story building, and it couldn't just go forever because that wouldn't be a reasonable use of, you know, there's just architecturally, et cetera. So we are, I mean, it's a 3-story building, and then we're calculating it from there. So we really, I think it is important to consider the actual height of the building once we go from 2-story to 3-story. And it's of course, not surprisingly, a very nice looking parking garage. That's, you know, but it is tall. And I know we're addressing both of these separately, but we are not only considering today the height requirement or request, but we're considering the height request also in the context of effectively eliminating all of the setbacks for this building. So the request is to construct a parking garage that covers from property line to property line and goes up an extra story beyond, and plus beyond the height requirements. Now, so those 2 things, I think we can't just, we have to consider them both, in my view, at the same time, because you're, you know, sort of basically maximizing the, you know, the possible use of the property. I did have a question that really wasn't addressed. It's the blue line on the drawing appears to be like the property line that this parking garage sits in. Is that correct? Like the parcel?
That is correct. The blue line is the property line.
Okay. And so since I've been on this board, we've had 2 other requests from Johns Island, I think relating to this parking garage. Is that correct? Are you aware of that?
No,
those are different?
Those are different.
Okay.
Yes, those are different
All right.
properties.
So that clears that question.
Yes, ma'am.
The zoning requests here are for setbacks and for height.
Correct.
Is it the case that all of the other requirements would still be satisfied in that, for example, maximum building lot coverage and the maximum density requirements, those, given the parcel, would still be satisfied? You don't need a variance for those items?
No, we don't need a variance for those items. Every other criteria for code is met, except this height and setback. And then if you like, I mean, I know it's the next hearing, but if you want to touch on the setback, we can. Briefly.
Could you address I guess, I have a question. So one of the criteria is that the variance requested is the minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the property. Could you address that criteria and in terms of our consideration of your request?
Of course. So, as we currently stated about the parking, there's no room on this parcel to add additional parking and still meet the code requirements. So going off of this, the only way to increase the parking is to go vertical. So what we're requesting is the minimum height that we feel comfortable that we can meet in order to get the parking as well as the setbacks. So looking at different areas, this was determined to be the best location for a parking garage structure that was not in view of residents, was not right when you come in view of the clubhouse. So in this, as you can see with the blue lines, the shape of the lot is also pinched. So this location was the best spot in order to best utilize the existing land.
Right, but you can still put a parking garage on the lot without this variance. And without the height variance, you can still, add parking.
So I think you're referring to, could we add a two-story parking garage?
Right. I mean, the amount of parking that you're requesting seems to me a preference. The location is a preference. It's not actually a limit of the property. It's a preference about where to put the parking. I'm trying to understand beyond the preference, the basis for the request.
So if you were to do a two-story parking garage and take into account the existing parking you're losing based off that and with the utilities there, you would have very little net gain in parking. That extra story is where we're getting the net gain in parking. So like there wouldn't be, I mean, from a feasibility standpoint, there wouldn't be an option to do a two-story parking garage.
Well, your net gain is 160 parking spots, right?
Correct, yes.
And how is it determined that you needed an additional 160 parking spots?
Well, like I think as Mr. Wilson stated, the increase of employees that have occurred in the club since the original construction of Johns Island, as well as like I was stating earlier, the residents. I believe we've switched from a lot of 1 or 2 car families to we're having a lot more people visit, and whenever we have like a large event or something occurring at the clubhouse, when you have the employees needed for that as well as the residents, we've always been tight on parking. And like previously stated, this parking garage would allow us to remove remote parking lots that are a distance away from the clubhouse that we now currently have employees parking, as well as losing I believe, was it 47 parking spaces near the tennis court complex? 74 parking spaces.
Okay. Well, thank you for all that. I'll be candid with you. I have 3 issues that I see that are an impediment for me. Number 1, the height, clearly, and the visibility from A1A. I don't think we satisfactorily addressed whether that is or is not going to be a problem. I don't think it should be visible from A1A. I think it would be a blemish and something to be avoided if at all possible. Secondly, and more technically, I haven't really heard of hardship except compliance with the code that the club doesn't want to comply with. And in that regard, it also seems to be a self-inflicted hardship because you're eliminating a number of parking spots in other areas and trying to compensate for that by constructing a three-story parking garage. And the other point, and it may be in the setback application, not so much this one, but it certainly comes into play here, is there's a proposal to remove cotton trees, and that has to be the subject of a separate application altogether. They're protected species, and I don't see that addressed anywhere. Overall, our basic charge here is to maintain the character of the town, and I think a three-story parking garage that consumes an entire lot is not something that's going to be consistent with what the code envisions. So I wanted to be upfront about what my concerns are with respect to the application. I also had another question that I should have asked early, candidly, and perhaps Mr. Wilson can address this. The applicant is John's Island Club, Inc. Does John's Island Club, Inc. own this property? They're the owner of the lot where the parking lot is proposed?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the adjacent lot next to it, which we abut, which is the golf course.
Thank you. I don't think we have any other attendees that want to make comments. Any other questions or comments from the board?
No.
Mr. Chair, I would just offer the applicant a final closing opportunity and then take it under discussion.
Surely.
Yeah, so I appreciate all the feedback everyone's given. Like I said, this is the first time that I've been able to present this and get to see what some of the concerns might be. The only thing I would ask is that if, you would allow us maybe the possibility, especially if you're, thinking in the negative direction on this vote, to let us pull it from the agenda and provide you some of these visual studies from A1A. That's something I wasn't prepared to show you. So if you'd be willing to let us show you some different exhibits, as well as show you some different, maybe we could also take some of this feedback and get back with the architect to look at some of the features we discussed and let us present it back to the board at a later date.
Let me be clear on the procedure, because I don't want anybody to give up rights they may have. So, Mr. Bergstrasser, Mr. Wilson, the way this will work is the board will do deliberations here in a minute, and you'll hear what they recommend. They make a recommendation to the town council. We'll be meeting next Thursday, 22nd. At that time, the council will have the opportunity to make a final decision. Now, ultimately, that decision is binding, and of course, at any time between now and then, you may do what you like. I'm not suggesting you should or shouldn't do anything, but I want to be clear that this is not the final hurdle. But again, it would be inappropriate for you not to be aware of how procedurally this will work.
And
that's all.
My understanding from reading the ordinances is that if the application is denied, there's a year wait before they can resubmit. So I suspect that may be
Thank you for mentioning that. That is also accurate. If it is denied, there is a 1-year waiting period if it's substantially the same for a variance. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to clarify, that's if it's denied by the town council.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Not relative to any recommendation here. And I'll defer to Mr. Sweeney, but I think procedurally, as the applicant, based on what you said, if you want to withdraw your application at this time, really at any time, you can sort of tell us that, and we'll adjourn and we can come back, and if that's your preference to try to work with some of this stuff, but I'll defer to
that's accurate.
I'll defer to the to our town attorney as to just at least articulating options as to whether or not it should be formally withdrawn or whether the board should simply table it and make sure that before we leave, any additional questions or additional information that the board wants is known to the applicant, and then we can schedule a mutually agreeable time to come back. I'm just trying to make sure that the process isn't, just is smooth for the board and for the applicant.
That's all accurate. There are really 3 options that could happen right now. Number 1, we continue, finalize this hearing, and you make a recommendation. Number 2, the applicant can withdraw today, tomorrow, all the way through next week. And number 3, if this board chooses to entertain a motion to table to the next meeting, which would be appropriate, you can do that. That's a majority vote. So those are the options.
Well, yeah, I'll turn to the applicant. How would you like to proceed?
No, and I appreciate all that clarification. Based off it being a recommendation board, we like to leave it open to you guys for a vote and then be able to take any of that feedback and put into our presentation, either if you table us to come back or to the town council.
Is the town council?
Yes, sir.
Is the town council able to consider evidence that has not been put before this board in their determination?
Arguably, yes. There's not a clarification in the code that whether it's de novo or not, and so the default provision is we've taken it's been de novo. Yes, sir.
Well, it sounds like we're ready for a motion. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the height variance for the parking lot.
All in favor?
Right, hang on, there needs to be a second. Sorry. He made the motion, there needs to be a second on the motion. I'm sorry.
Any second?
Okay.
No second.
The motion dies for lack of a second. That's correct.
Any other motion? I can't make it.
Right.
You can give up the gavel temporarily to make the motions, should you so choose.
I will surrender the gavel, and I move to deny the application for the height variance.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion
I
carries.
do want to be clear to please articulate under Florida law, you know, you have the different elements here, and if the two of you could just briefly, I heard you, Mr. Carbon, already start, but if you could briefly go through the A through G, just very quickly, and whether or not the applicant met those elements, and if they did or didn't, identify why. Do you have those? I can provide those to you if need be.
I have them.
Yeah, it's up to me, whichever of you wants to go first. It just needs to be clear.
I thought you were.
Starting with the A, special conditions, Ms. Bowman?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first.
Okay.
I'm looking at 16807 2, A2,
Yes.
and the criteria setting forth the considerations for variance.
Yes, sir.
Consideration A is special condition. I have not heard special conditions relative to this application. The lot has existed for a period of time, has been used as a parking lot, and really have not heard anything that has altered that use or application. B, is it unique? I don't see anything any circumstances that cause a hardship peculiar to the property. C, hardship. I think I've addressed that already. I don't see any particular hardship. I don't see any change. The explanation provided in the application really doesn't articulate a hardship. D, is the hardship self-created? And from what we've heard today, it seems like the elimination of parking spots in other areas is exactly that. E, minimum variance. I have not heard how the 160 additional parking spots was determined, except some seat of the pants. It seems like it would be a good idea. And therefore, we have not heard of a demonstration that this is the minimum variance required. I believe those are the items.
I'm sorry, there are two more. F is adjacent properties, and G is use.
Well, that's a good point. Adjacent property, I see in the application that there are two properties at least that will be within view of this garage you've constructed, but there's no indication that those property owners were contacted or have any input or even put on notice of this hearing of this application. As far as the immediately adjoining properties, it sounds like that is property of John's Island Club, and they obviously don't have any complaint. I don't have the, what is the next criteria? Do you have it?
It's use variance.
Oh, the use variance.
Minimum.
Not applicable.
I don't see an issue with the use variance. It's being used as a parking lot as is.
Thank you.
All right, so from from my perspective, is fairly similar. Out of the criteria, you know, special conditions, there's nothing inherent to the land that would require a variance. And the key term of the code is reasonable use. It's currently being used as a parking structure or a parking lot. A parking structure could be built to add more parking. There'd be 2 levels of parking. So that one, I don't, I don't think has been satisfied. B, similar reasoning, although I understand the preferences and the desires of the, you know, to serve the members. That's not the type of justification that supports a variance under zoning code. Similar with criteria C, the hardship described here is not the type of hardship that variances are intended to address. The hardships are, in my view, preferences, and there are alternatives that would not require a variance. Similar on self-created, the justification for this request is, in my view, squarely within the definition of a self-created harm, and that is a difficult one to overcome, in my view. And while I understand that this parking structure is within the overall properties, property of Johns Island Club, we have a responsibility to apply these rules equally to all of the applications that come before this board. And I think it poses a great difficulty to future applications if we create exceptions for certain applicants and not other applicants. And so despite my empathy and sympathy for the request, I don't believe it satisfies the criteria of a variance. Similar to minimum category E, the minimum variance, there's, the applicant has essentially attempted to maximize the variance effectively rather than minimize the variance. And so I don't believe that criteria is satisfied. On the height requirement, criteria F, I think we don't have enough information on that criteria. That was one question I had in advance of this meeting, what the view would be from A1A, and we don't have that information, so that hasn't been satisfied by the applicant at this hearing. And then the use variance, I think, is not an issue here because it is a parking lot. So those are my reasonings.
Thank you both. That, of course, will become part of the minutes and will be forwarded to the town council as part of the recommendation. Thank you. At this time, Mr. Chair, I would assume you want to move into the next variance request. Of course, similar, but.
Yes, and that is a request for a variance with respect to the setback code limitation. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I'll be brief as we basically touched on everything else in the parking garage. So with the setback requirement, where we're asking for it is on the east and west side of the parking garage. As stated, the west of the parking garage is the golf course, which is also owned by Johns Island Club. And then to the east of the parking structure is Silver Moss Drive, which is a private right-of-way. So that means it's a private road that is owned and maintained by the club. So basically, we're asking for variance on setbacks for parcels that are all under the same ownership. So I'm open to any other questions I will say. Oh, and I just want to make one point. As we look at these variances, I just want to note that when you grant a variance, that cannot be used in a future variance request stating that, hey, you gave these people a variance on this. It's always site-specific. So the reason I just wanted to state that out there is it doesn't set a precedent for us on any other application that we might make or for another property owner when they make an application for a variance.
And Mr. Chair, factually, that's accurate. I understand there's a practical aspect of
Right.
real life, but legally, that is a correct statement.
Yeah, so I just want to state that because we cannot use that as an excuse for reasoning, I apologize, for a variance anywhere else on the Johns Island property.
But this board has a responsibility to apply the criteria the same, to apply the criteria to every application that comes through. So that's my constraint here, is that we are effectively being asked to excuse multiple of the criteria. And
I understand. I was just pointing that out, just that we can't use that for future variances. So I'm open to any questions you might have when it pertains just to the setback variances that we're requesting.
And we received some material yesterday, which included an email from Blaine Bergstresser to Mr. Wilson dated January 9. And in item 3 of that email, it indicates that there are going to be oak trees that will be removed. You're aware that has to be the subject of a separate application, I take it?
Correct, yes, that's a separate
So
application.
we don't have the authority, we don't have an application here, so we don't have the authority to approve that plan right now.
Well, you're not approving the plan. You're not.
We're being asked to grant the variance, which includes removal of cotton oak trees.
No. It's only a variance to be able to utilize up to the property line and no longer setbacks. That's all. So he couldn't go through and pull a permit to do any land clearing. And I see Mr. Held shaking his head. They could not physically do anything other than they would be allowed to. Now there's other, electrical, wind load, flood, all of the things that would be natural for Mr. Held's office to be evaluated.
That's correct.
Let me understand that. So if this variance is granted, they would then have to make a separate application with respect to oak trees and all the other items that they would have to address.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, sir.
Is the HOA in favor of this?
Is the HOA in favor of this?
They have no objection.
So I believe this was presented to the board. It was presented to the board.
Mr. Wilson, can you come up to
Yeah.
the microphone and just explain that? It's just easier.
It's easier, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I only spoke with the general manager down there at Chippewa, and they had no objection.
And Chippewa, just so we're clear on the record.
Johns Island Property Owners Association.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So the members themselves have not been notified or requested input? Just the manager?
The members are aware, they've been aware since last year of the project.
And it's the property owners that own the land to the south or to the east of that road between the proposed structure and A1A, is that correct? That's not Johns Island Club, Inc., that is a property owners association.
That's part of the Property Owners Association, correct.
Any other questions?
I'm not sure I have questions, but I have, so ultimately, or maybe this is a question, if the height variance is denied by the council, what would the plans be with respect to the structure and the setbacks? Would you go forward with a two-story structure on this expanded footprint?
I'm not 100% sure at this time, because as you imagine, this is all determined by the board. So if the height variance is denied, we'd have to ask with them on if they'd want to move forward with it.
Anything else?
Is there a reason why the two requests weren't in the same application?
Yes, and a part of that has to do with when it comes to setbacks, there's certain thresholds. They're evaluated differently from being submitted to the building department. Setbacks, there's an administrative approval authority by Mr. Helder, the chief building official, of less than 1 foot. 3 feet this board can approve. Of course, since it's greater than that, it's, you know, obviously something that needs to go all the way up to town council. And just from a evaluation perspective, it was appropriate to have them be two separate variances. I understand they're almost inextricably intertwined to become very lawyerly here, but that's the reason why, as I understand it. Mr. Held can clarify if I'm incorrect procedurally.
No, that's a procedure. You are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? I don't want to repeat everything that we discussed during the first application. I think a good part of it is relevant here. So if there's nothing else, we should proceed to a vote. Do I hear a vote? A motion? I'll pass the gavel and I'll make a motion to deny the application. Any second?
I will second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
And again, without belaboring it, and you would be welcome to recite similar to earlier, but it is important to go through these items.
I will do.
Thank you.
Again, looking at section 168.07, A2, criteria for the grant of a variance application. A, special conditions, and I'll join this with B, unique situation. I don't see special conditions or anything unique about this particular situation. The situation has existed for years. I really haven't heard any great change articulated that warrants recognizing a special condition or a unique situation.
Mr. Carbon, could you hit your microphone? I'm sorry, I just saw it was off.
I'm sorry, it is off.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, sir, I can hear you better. Thank you.
Thank you. C, hardship. I don't see the hardship. I don't see it has been demonstrated. The application has been submitted, does not articulate a hardship. And certainly it does seem to be a self-created situation at best, particularly given the elimination of a number of parking spots in other areas. E, minimum variance. We discussed the number of spots that are going to be added. That has not been clearly articulated in terms of how many additional spots are needed and how that number was arrived at, aside from some general sense that more was wanted. What's F?
Adjacent property owners. F is, yeah.
With respect to F, adjacent property owners, while there has been no notice to those individual properties that have been identified as possibly being able to view or within sight of the garage, I understand that the HOA is in agreement, so I don't see an issue there. Nor do I see an issue with the use, since the property has been used as a parking lot for some time.
my view is with all of the criteria, I agree with my fellow board member, and similar to what I described before, the key criteria for me that I don't think are met are criteria C, criteria D. Criteria C is hardship. I mean, the code itself says it is of no importance whatsoever that the denial of the variance might deny to the property owner some opportunity to use the property in a more profitable way or to sell at a greater profit. Effectively, similarly, you know, the opportunity to use the property in a better way or a better preferred way, I don't think is the type of hardship that criteria addresses. Self-created, I don't see how this gets around that criteria. It certainly isn't the minimum variance requested, because it's actually the maximum possible variance requested from 25 feet to 0 feet. And it's of reasonable use of the property, and there's still opportunity for reasonable use of the property without the variance requested. So that's a difficulty for me. Criteria F, I think the setback request is, you know, without the height request added on to the setback request, the setback request alone is less troubling in terms of adjacent property because, you know, the only two directly adjacent properties are either the applicant itself or an associated membership group to the club. So in my view, category F has been satisfied, and category G is, it's maintaining the same use as a parking, so that's been satisfied. But similar to the other ones, it's maximizing the space, and in conjunction with the height request, I think those are my reasons for voting no on this variance request.
Thank you both.
Any other business we need to address?
Thank you so much.
No, Mr. Chair, I don't believe there is anything else. And as mentioned, this will be going on the 22nd to the town council at the next regular town council meeting, which will start at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry, at 9 o'clock. Yes, that's correct.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
We are concluded.